Now that everyone's calmed down after Sunday night's debacle, let's say, Blue Jackets have got a long road trip to go on, and they need to get a certain amount of points. We'll discuss on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host, Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get things started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. I also have to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. This is a weird road trip coming up for the Blue Jackets. And can we like acknowledge how stupid the scheduling has been this season? And I know that like it's a compacted schedule because of the Olympic break. So, they're trying to cram 82 games into a space of time that is, I think, like 2.5 weeks shorter than it normally would be. Which is why the Blue Jackets have had so many a set of back-to-backs and then nothing for 2 days, and then back-to-backs, and then nothing for 2 days. Just feels, I don't know, feels stupid. This is a new level of stupid for the scheduling. I've seen it before where they have, the California road trip where they do, LA to San Jose and then to Anaheim instead of doing, the two South Californias and then the North California or, flipping it or whatever. This year, they're doing the California swing in 2 trips. They're doing an LA Anaheim visit, and then they leave, and then they come back a month later to do San Jose, and I think Vegas or Utah. Which again, wild, stupid. This though feels egregiously dumb, even for NHL schedulers, which is that the Blue Jackets fly out, presumably today. On Wednesday, they play in Calgary. On Saturday, they play in Vancouver. And then the week after that, I think, is Monday. They play in Edmonton, and then Tuesday they play in Seattle. So 4 games in the space of a week, that's fine. But going from Calgary to Vancouver to Edmonton to Seattle feels just so stupid. And also having that back-to-back into that international back-to-back as well. So you play in Edmonton on Monday night, and then Tuesday night you have to play in Seattle. So you've got to fly a non-zero distance, right? It's not the longest distance in the world, but it's probably what, a 3-hour flight, 4-hour flight. I'm exposing my weaknesses of the middle of North America here, but you're gonna finish the game, you're gonna fly out, you're not gonna get in until 2 a.m. at the earliest, right? You've got a clear border control in America, and then you've got to play a game the next day. Stupid, weird, makes no sense. I'm going to go ahead and schedule that in as a loss for the Blue Jackets. Not really, but would anyone be surprised, right? That being said, this is a road trip where there is a lot of potential, right? They're playing Calgary on Wednesday. I'm not going to get into specifics of each team necessarily because that's what the game preview of. Also tomorrow, I'm going to talk about Calgary in more detail. But Calgary as a team right now is struggling. They are where is it? They are 3-9-2 on the season so far. They are below the Sharks in the standings, which is kind of wild. They are they're scoring the least amount of goals per game. They're allowing a lot of goals per game. Their special teams aren't great. They're not getting the goaltending from the guy that they just gave a lot of money to, which I do think is probably just because of how atrocious everyone on the team is, rather than an indictment on Dustin Wolf himself. Because as we all know, I'm a big fan of Dustin Wolf. He was my pick to win the Calder last season. And I think, much like Elvis last night, Dustin Wolf should probably be allowed a knife. But we'll get to that in a little bit more detail kind of in tomorrow's episode, so I don't get too deeply into the Flames right now. Then they play Vancouver, who are Vancouver's a weird team, right? They're 6-7 right now. They've got arguably the best defenseman in the world who keeps getting injured. Their stars are hot and cold, hot and cold. Like, they've just got a new coach. They've just got their, like, I was going to say franchise goalie. That's not necessarily true, I don't think. But Thatcher Demko is a very good goalie that has been a good goalie for them for a long time. They finally got him back after he was in and out of the lineup all last season. They make no sense as a team. They win against teams that they shouldn't, and they lose to teams that they shouldn't. Weird team. So on that kind of aspect of it, after the Blue Jackets coming off of this really annoying loss to the Islanders, where, again, as if it wasn't clear enough in yesterday's episode, they fully deserve to lose this game. I'm not mad about them losing the game. I'm mad about how they lost it. But playing Calgary is a great, like, get right game. You know, I do think it's a little bit of a trap, but after coming off that Islanders game, they wanted a game that maybe they don't have to stress about too much, right? Like, it's not coming in and being like, oh, great, we have to play the Florida Panthers, or we have to play the Carolina Hurricanes, who, you know, always have the Blue Jackets number, or we have to play the Montreal Canadiens, who are on a really annoying hot streak at the minute, right? They're going to play the Calgary Flames, bottom of the league, bottom of their division, bottom of the conference, etc., etc., etc. And it's a Western team, so like even if you give up points, it's not the same as giving up 2 points to a Metropolitan opponent. It's a good game to ease you back in, and it's a good game to start the road trip, right? And then after that, it starts ramping up. Play the Canucks, weird team. Edmonton, weirdly struggling this season. They're 6-4-3 right now, and are looking, again, kind of weirdly mortal for a team that has arguably two of the best three forwards. And, you know, again, you could argue like two of the top 5 players in the league right now, in McDavid and Draisaitl. Like, they're getting wonky goaltending. They're getting, you know, some questionable games are happening for the Edmonton Oilers. So, you know, they're still a dangerous team. It's still a team that you can't underestimate, because, again, Connor McDavid has that Sidney Crosby thing of we'll just do something insane at least once a game, like it's nothing, and you have to just kind of try and catch up with him. And then you play Seattle the night after, who I believe is actually leading the division right now. No, that's a lie. They are leading of the 4 teams that I've just mentioned. I believe they are top. I can't do the math off the top of my head. No, the Oilers are the winners right now. Weirdly, the Anaheim Ducks are leading the Pacific right now. Sure. But like going from the Flames to the Canucks and then to a duo of the Oilers and the Kraken, who are basically identical in terms of standings. The Kraken have a better points percentage. The Oilers have 1 more point. It's a good, like, let's ramp it up road trip. Like I said, you know, you start with the quote-unquote easier teams, and then you get to the tougher teams. I don't love that they're playing Edmonton and Seattle back-to-back, as I've, you know, literally just mentioned, because I do think that that's a... I don't know, that's a stupid road. Like, that's a stupid back-to-back to plan for a bunch of reasons, but it's what's happening, right? So, Calgary, Vancouver, Edmonton, Seattle. How many points are realistic for this Blue Jackets squad? Let's talk about that in just a second here at Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I've got to tell you about Monarch. Let's be honest, most of us can't name all our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401k, savings, investments, it's easy to lose track, and that can mean leaving money on the table. And that's why I started using Monarch. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. It's helped me organize my accounts, track my spending, get a better handle on where my money is and what I'm doing with it without having to touch a spreadsheet. I don't have to have my 17 different apps open and a spreadsheet and a pen and paper to try and figure out what's going on. Monarch has it all in one. I love their visual dashboards. They've got these smart tools that make it so much easier to understand how to make my money work harder for me. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for 50% off your first year. I've also got to tell you about FanDuel, because the NBA is back and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who's going to score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about how realistic, how many points is realistic for the Blue Jackets on this road trip, right? They're 7-5 right now. They are sitting in a wild card spot. I was going to say comfortably in a wild card spot, but that's simply not the case. They have the same number of points as the Hurricanes, who are currently sitting third in the Metro. The Rangers, the Senators, the Bruins all have 14 points as well. So the East is weird right now, man. If you take the top 4 teams out of it, who all have 18 points, Montreal, Detroit, New Jersey, and the Penguins, you've got Tampa and Carolina, who have the third seeds in both divisions. And then the difference between third in the Metro and third in the Atlantic is a single point. So, the Blue Jackets are probably going to fall, unless many, many things go right or wrong, depending on who you ask. The Blue Jackets are probably going to start this road trip out of a playoff position, just because it seems unrealistic that they don't play tonight or tomorrow. So of these 2 nights, it seems unrealistic that none of the Rangers, the Senators, the Bruins, the Islanders, the Capitals, the Panthers, the Leafs, the Sabres, and the Flyers are going to lose a game. At least one of those teams is probably going to win a game, and it'll probably more than one, right? It'll knock the Blue Jackets out of playoffs. But it's early. The Blue Jackets have got a pretty good points percentage going. It helps that they have games in hand over a handful of the teams that are behind them. But they're gonna have to find a way to get back into a playoff position, right? And again, it's November 3rd as of me recording this. It'll be November 4th when you listen to this. It seems silly to stress about playoffs right now, right? But playoffs are earned in the fall and reinforced in the spring, right? How many times have I talked about it on this show? 95% of playoff teams are in a playoff spot on American Thanksgiving, which is, 3 weeks away? 4 weeks away? 3.5? They got some grinding to do to get there. Yes, things have been going well so far. Again, I'm not hitting the panic button on the season here just because they had that one bad game against the Islanders. But they need to come out of this with points, right? Part of what sunk them last year, in addition to that big stretch in March where they just kind of forgot how to score goals at all, the Blue Jackets had that early-ish 6-game losing streak where they went out to California and lost a bunch of games, basically on the West Coast, right? And you can't go out to the West Coast on these long 3-4 game road trips and come back with no points, right? So how many points is realistic for the Blue Jackets to come back with? They'll be back in Nationwide to face the Oilers again. Weirdly, they do their entire season series in the space of 4 days. 5 days, I think. So by November 13th, so 10 days from now, they'll be back in Nationwide. Then they play the Oilers, the Rangers, and the Canadiens for the next 3 games. You want a buffer, especially for when you hit, you want to win the game against the Rangers for obvious reasons, division rival or division opponent. You want to win against the Canadiens because screw the Canadiens, right? These 4 games, I personally I want 6 points out of this, I think. That feels realistic to me, and I don't know whether that's you win 3 of them and lose 1, or whether you win 2 of them and lose in overtime twice, but 6 points feels realistic to me, right? You want to beat the Flames, and then ideally I want 2 out of 3 wins against Vancouver, Edmonton, and Seattle. Ideally you want to beat Vancouver, and then if you could split that back to back, Edmonton and Seattle, that to me feels Like, obviously, the ideal is you win all 4 games, and, but the ideal is you win every single game every season, right? So, we're not talking about ideal, we're talking about realistic. And ideally, like, realistically, the ideal thing is, like, 3 out of 4 wins, I think is what I kind of want and am expecting at this point. I think you should steamroll through Calgary and Vancouver, who, one of which is a struggling team, the other of which is a team that you can't really like. I don't know what's going on with Vancouver. I don't think Vancouver fans know what's going on with Vancouver right now, right? And then it comes down to, okay, Edmonton and Seattle, you should want to win one of those games. If you win both of them, great, but you should be looking at winning at least one of those games, or getting, you want 2 points, right? So if those are 2 overtime losses or shootout losses or whatever, like, sure, fine, losing sucks, but you want to get the points, right? And I think that to me is what I'm looking at. Is I want the Blue Jackets, when they come back to Nationwide, is they should be sitting on about 20 points on the season. So 20 points in 16 games. That's what I want. I don't know where that will leave them, because again, it's 10 days from now. The East is so tight that nothing makes any sense as to what's happening in here. But that feels like the spot for me. Is I would love to be sitting here on November 12th and talking about how the Blue Jackets had a good Western road trip, because they need to, like, even if you have to go to overtime all 4 games, like, here's the thing, and like, that's the thing, like, you don't have to win these in regulation, like, it would help, because obviously regulation wins are one of the tiebreakers. The Blue Jackets currently have, of their 7 wins, 5 of them are regulation, 6 of them are regulation or overtime. They've had 1 shootout win and 1 overtime win. They've also got no overtime losses at this point. Like, they've either won their games or lost them in regulation. Which means that there's no I was going to call them pity points, but that seems mean. But you look at something like the Avalanche, who are sitting on a record of 7-1-5, so they're seven wins and 6 losses, but 5 of those losses have been in overtime, so they're sitting at the top of the West, despite the fact that they've lost. They're basically a 500 team, but because of those loser points or pity points or overtime points or whatever you want to call them, they're currently sitting at the top of the West. So, racking up some overtime losses instead. That should have, ideally, like, that would have been Sunday's game, right? Is you somehow claw your way into an overtime loss. You get an extra point, gives you a little bit of padding. Yeah, you still lose, but you get a point, and you take a point in the Metro Division game as well. So, to roll back to my original point of, yeah, go to overtime, whatever you want. These 4 games, you want 6 points from them. I don't really care how you do that, but you want 6 points from them. That's kind of how I feel about this road trip. I don't know what's going to happen on this road trip. Obviously, there's some, like, injuries that are happening right now. There's some lineup drama. Feels dramatic, if you'll excuse the pun, word for it. But there is some lineup questions right now. So let's see if we can puzzle through some of them in just a second here on Locked On Blue Jackets. First, I want to talk to you about Game Time. Hockey season is officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But let's be real. Getting tickets can be a total headache. Between waiting in queues, surprise fees, prices that jump right before checkout, it's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. And that's where Game Time comes in. It's the app that gives fans the advantage. It is your ultimate life hack for scoring amazing NHL tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. I use Game Time all the time when I'm in North America. I use it a lot for Sharks games, which is so great because Sharks tickets are super cheap. So I love to go on Game Time and be like, yeah, I will pay $19 for a ticket to an NHL game. I love that. But I used them in Montreal last month. I used them in Toronto last month, and it was great. It was super easy. Take the guesswork out of buying NHL tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jackets. Let's talk about the lineup because I don't know what's going to happen in this Calgary game, and obviously we'll talk, presumably by the time we record for tomorrow's episode, we'll know a little bit more about what the lineup's going to look like, we hope. Here's my thing. The lineup changes didn't work last night, I don't think. I don't think that could, and I talked about this a lot last night, so I'm not going to get super into it, but I don't think that it was entirely the lineup changes that lost that game, because the lines that didn't change were also just clown shoes. The top line got caved in, the third line got caved in, the fourth line shockingly was fine, and the second line was about what I expected it to be, which was they scored and got caved in for every other minute. I think they were outshot 7-1 in the second line's minutes, and they outscored the Islanders 1-0, because hockey is a stupid sport that makes no sense. Here's my thing. Ken Johnson is not a fourth line player. Miles Wood is not a second line player. I don't know that they're going to go back to the original lines of just, again, flip-flopping those two players. I don't know that Chinakhov will get to go back in the lineup. Someone pointed out, by which I mean a friend was texting me about this, that Zach Aston Reese had family in the building on Sunday in Long Island, so maybe that's why he got back into the lineup for a game. Just because his I believe it was his dad was in the building, so they were like, okay, well, we'll play you because your dad's in the building, which is fine, and I'm okay with it, right? It's frustrating that it came at the expense of Chinakhov, who I don't think deserved to sit, but who else do you scratch, right? Arguably Cole Sillinger, who outside of that one game against Toronto has had a bit of an up and down season, mostly downs at this point, but So I wonder if Chinakhov goes back into the lineup, considering he was playing much better than Aston Reese. I don't know, though. I wouldn't be surprised if they go into Calgary with exactly the same lineup as they had against the Islanders, and that's just going to make life so much more difficult. I stand by that. I think the best option for me is, well, there are two best options. Is one, you got to get Jenner out of the top six. He doesn't work on that line with Fantilli and Johnson. I thought that line was going to work, and in theory it should work, but stylistically it doesn't mesh. My friend, again, was texting me man, you know what, who would be great on that line? James Van Riemsdyk. I agree, but that's neither here nor there. I understand that they don't want to break up the third line. I wonder if Charlie Coyle fits in on that line. Charlie Coyle having a great season so far for the Blue Jackets on that third line is, I think, third on the team in points right now, third or fourth. If you count defensemen, which I always forget about because they score them they keep them separately. But I wonder if that's an option. I understand that they want to keep him as a 3C. They acquired him to be a center. He's the only right-handed center on the roster, but you can still have him play center minutes, but put him up on that wing with Fantilli and Jenner. They want to have. I think they like having a second center on that line because Fantilli's faceoffs aren't great yet. He'll learn, but and I think Coyle has a much more chill style of play than Boone Jenner, and that's not necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, right? But he's really calm out there. I think he's much more careful with the puck than Boone Jenner is. I feel like I see a lot of this line is good at zone entries, right? They're pretty good at entering the zone, and then every so often they will just launch the puck nowhere. And when I say they, I mostly mean Boone Jenner, who will just kind of launch the puck kind of in the vague direction of one of his line mates. It'll get picked off. It goes the other direction, right? And Jenner's not the only one that's guilty of this, right? It's all three of them on the line. But I wonder if having Coyle on that line he will be able to keep up with them a little bit better, I think. And I also think that he will calm the line down a little bit. I think he will be a good presence. I think he would be a very similar presence to JVR, but he's got a little bit more foot speed than JVR, and he plays a different game, but I think he would have the same kind of effect on the two younger players. I don't think they're going to do that, just because I think that again they like that third line, and they like having Coyle at center. But that personally, that is an adjustment that I would make. Is I would have that second line be Coyle, Fantilli, and Johnson, and then move Jenna down to the third line, and have Jenna, Sillinger, Olivier as the third line. I think it's a fine third line, right? The other option, and this is something that I kind of have been banging on about for a couple episodes now, is what if you flip Fantilli and Monahan? Neither of them are scoring right now. Their wingers are, the Russians are doing okay, but Karamachenko hasn't scored in like 6 or 7 games. Obviously, you want to try and get Johnson going. You want to try and get Jenna going. You want to try and get Voronkov consistently going, although Voronkov arguably has been the best of those 4 wingers in recent games. That being said, Marchenko has assisted 5 straight, so like he's doing okay, but I think the fact that he's not scoring is making people a little twitchy. But if you flip them, put Fantilli with the Russians, put Monahan likes playing with Jenna. I think they're a decent duo, and I still think that Monahan and Johnson might have something, if only because Johnson plays a very similar Gaudreau style of hockey. And obviously Monahan and Gaudreau played really well together. I don't think you're going to be able to recreate that magic 1-to-1, but I do think that there is something there. Ideally, you want to be giving Fantilli 1C minutes anyway. Like, you want to give him the heavy lifting and see, he responded beautifully to it last season. And I think you should, like, sooner or later, he's going to be the 1C, right? So why not start now? It doesn't have to be permanent. Monahan's still going to get, like, his top unit power play. He's still going to penalty kill. Like, that's where he's going to get his minutes. If he plays slightly less on the second line. But I think that Fantilli with the Russians and Monahan with Johnson and Jenna is maybe the ideal. If you want to do a wild lineup change, like that to me is that's what you should do. The defense is going to be interesting. Because Denton Matejchuk apparently is banged up at the minute, so that's why he didn't play a ton in this game. And I mean, he still played like almost 13 minutes, which is like 3 minutes more than Jake Christensen, who for some reason Everson just will not play. Obviously Gobranson's out at the minute. I don't know. I guess he'll travel with the team, but I don't think he's going to play, especially not in Calgary. What happens if Matejchuk can't go? Do you run a third pairing of Jake Christensen and Dyson Mayo and play them for like 8 minutes a game and just hope that Werenski, Fabro, Provorov, Severson can all play like 25 minutes each? Seems risky. You're gonna have to figure that out. Like, you're not gonna win games with 4 defensemen. You need to be able to roll that third pairing, and I don't know that they're going to be able to, especially without Matejchuk in the lineup. They already don't trust Christensen. I don't think they're going to trust Mayo any more than they trust Christensen, although who knows who knows who Everson trusts at this point, right? But that I think is also going to be really interesting. Now, I don't know. He's clearly not banged up enough to like sit, but it sounds like they're kind of managing his ice time. And Denton Matejchuk as well, even in those limited minutes, managed to score a great goal last night or Sunday night. So, who knows? He might be good to go by Wednesday. Day off today, they'll probably skate, or day off yesterday, Monday, they'll probably skate today, Tuesday, see how it goes. Hopefully good to go Wednesday. It helps that they've got a game on Wednesday and then not again until Saturday. So if they do need to get, again, like if they want to play him, but like limit his minutes, this is probably a good time to do that before they get into, before they get back to nationwide and start getting back into games every other night. So who knows what's going to happen with the defenseman? Certainly not me. But I do think that I am wary of what the defense is going to look like if Matejchuk has to miss time, because I don't know that we're going to rolling 4 defensemen is not the way. But I don't see a world where Everson rolls 6 defensemen if Gabranson and Matejchuk are both out of the lineup, because he doesn't trust Christensen, and I don't know what he'll do with Dyson Mayo. So who knows? Tomorrow we'll talk a little bit more about the Calgary game. Hopefully we'll have an idea of what the lineup is going to look like after they've skated later today, I hope. So that'll be tomorrow. We'll do predictions. We'll preview all of the things that the Calgary Flames are doing and how adventurous they're being for their goalie, which is not very. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets continues to be free and available on all podcast platforms. We're over on YouTube, and you can find us over on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets as well. You can find me on Blue Sky at JAKOBFORSTEI. You can find the show, I just said that, over on Twitter, LO_Blue Jackets. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening, and until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.